r/ask Reddit. What was for you the best part of the pandemic? No traffic. Yup, and that lovely silence that goes with the lack of traffic. Plus the little things, like realizing 95% of our jobs are meaningless and the meaningful jobs are drastically underpaid. First responders, supermarket workers, sanitation workers, truck drivers. There's probably a football stadium full of essential workers that perished because they couldn't stay home, and sadly they won't get any recognition for it. But they got so many shoutouts and thank yous from celebrities. Heart signs on people's lawns. Didn't you hear that? We were all in it together? Ironically, not getting sick. So I actually work in and was swimming in COVID for a while. This was especially concerning in the pre-vaccination days. I'm one of those people who catches every respiratory bug out there and usually have a couple of bad colds, bronchitis every year that make me really miserable for a few weeks. From spring of 2020 until May of 2022 I didn't get sick once. I got COVID in May of 2022 when there was an outbreak at my kid's school and we figure she brought his home. That was the first time I had been sick since the start of the pandemic. It's almost like masking works. In all seriousness, I'll probably continue to mask during flu season in the future. It's a really interesting side effect after this pandemic. In Western countries, wearing a mask pre-pandemic was unheard of. You were weird doing that and stood out. But now I'll wear a mask to be safe, but sometimes I don't want to be recognized at the local event, so I'll wear a mask. Lost 60 pounds. Wife lost 75. We were fat. We're not anymore. Way to go. I think your lost weight was found by many others over the pandemic. I think I stored like 15 of them temporarily. I've passed them along since. I got furloughed. It meant I got to spend the pandemic shielding with my wife before she passed away last year. Words can't describe how grateful I am that I got so much extra quality time with my wife. Would have been impossible to have that much time if I'd had to be working full time. Edit. Blown away by all the lovely messages. I'd thank you each individually, but it would take me forever. Honestly, it really warms my heart seeing such kindness. Thank you all. I'm glad you had time to be with her before she left. Sorry for your loss. OMG. I know exactly what you mean. I got engaged at the end of 2019, and my partner passed away February of last year. I'm so grateful that we got all that time together. We would go on tons of road trips exploring empty cities, including Vegas. Didn't go in anywhere. Just spend the night walking the empty strip. It was the best way to experience Vegas for the first time. I have a picture of him across from New York across the strip, and New York City was one of his favorite places. We laughed, cried, fought, and got to know each other so intimately. I would give anything to go back to those precious months. Got to see the Grand Canyon, Zion, Bryce Canyon, and camping all over national forest land. We got years of experiences condensed down into those few months. And looking back now, I can see why. He was only 24 and taken away way too soon. But I know in my heart he left this world happier than he had ever been. I'm so sorry you had to experience that hurt. But no, you're not alone. I wish you nothing but peace and as much serenity as you can find moving forward. Work from home has been legitimized in an unprecedented way. I always figured it would be, but I expected it to be another 20 years. COVID forced it and was definitely a silver lining. Right, I work in IT for local government. Out of 16 people, only 4 are on the help desk. We all knew that we were sitting in offices 40 hours a week to do 10-20 hours of work, maybe 30 on a busy week with lots of broken stuff. Pandemic hit and we all went work from home with one rotating help desk on site. I have been to the office maybe 20 times since March of 2020. Network admin, so I have to do physical installs occasionally. All the rest of the county is back at the office. No one except our boss and the county judge even know that we still work from home. Everything still gets done. I had 2 friends that I hung out with almost every night. They were just as isolated as I was during the day, so we weren't too worried about passing anything. None of us got sick. Spent the nights drinking, having bonfires and talking. Good times. Some of the best. Yeah, I had a COVID gang. Great times. It was like being a kid again in some ways. I hadn't had a regular hangout going on since college. It's all over now for various reasons, but it was good while it lasted. It was like the good parts of high school. You didn't have shit to do, so you just hung out at each other's houses and did whatever or nothing at all. Spending time with aging pets. I had to put down a cat in the last few months. He got to lay on my keyboard and purr all day. I also have an old dog who is nearing the end, and I'm really happy I had those months at home with her. I also lost one of my cats last year. I'm so thankful I had a full year of being home with her and getting all the cuddles. I miss her every day, but knowing I was present all the time for her in her last year does bring me some peace. I was the complete opposite of you and OP. 4 months into the pandemic, I went to the shelter and adopted a 6-month-old Siberian Furbull because I was so lonely and depressed from the constant isolation. Just coming across this question made me grimace because the solitude of the pandemic really got to me. But he was probably the only good thing to come from it. Not having to get up early in the morning. Oh dear God, this was and still is so amazing. I had to commute an hour by train for my job at the time. And suddenly, no more commute, just sleeping an hour longer, having an hour extra time at home in the evening. I changed jobs in the meantime. Now I'm 15-minute walk away from the office, and I still don't have to go in, and it's still heaven. I used to have to be up at 6 AM and was home at 6:30 PM every day. To get 8 hours of sleep I would have to go to bed at 10 PM. That's 5 hours to prepare and eat dinner and walk the dog. No TV, no video games, no consistent gym schedule. It was terrible. WFH life, even if I work 50/60 hour weeks, has given me a work-life balance I never had before. People standing 6+ feet away from me at all times. I wish this was more common. I still give a lot of space to people in front of me when I'm standing in line, but inevitably the person behind me is always right on my heels. Same for me too. I hate this so much. I can't understand why someone would want to be practically right on top of a stranger like that. Edit. Fixed something my phone auto-corrected. Wife died the 20th of August 20 of cancer. The lockdowns meant I could grieve without any pressure. In the long run, this saved my life. Edit. Thanks for all the kind words. Another great thing is that because of the lockdowns, between then and her death we got to spend every waking minute together. I am very thankful for that time. For anyone wondering, life moves forward and it gets better eventually. I miss her every day though. I have met someone who has shown me that I can love again. It's what my wife would have wanted. I lost my son in the 20th of May 20, and I'm glad I didn't have an expectation of keeping face while grieving. Friends heard me talk or read my messages, but I didn't have to smile and pretend I was fine. I strongly believe that is why I'm okay now. I'm sorry for your loss. My hermiting was normal, and the extroverts were clawing at the walls and in just as much distress as when they try to make me act social. I have to admit I sometimes leaned back with a drink while reading posts and saying, calm as a beach, in it. I gave up trying to please extroverts way before the pandemic tbh, but it did really highlight some of the disparities between people with kids and those without at my work. Like of course all the men with 3 kids under the age of 6 want to be in the office. My girlfriend and I decided to quarantine together even though we had only been dating for 6 months, and honestly, I didn't know if it would last. Better to not be alone, though. I lost my job. She was a PhD student. We were strapped for cash, but we spent every evening cooking incredible food that was as delicious as it was calming to cook. She is Iranian and I learned how unique Persian food was. She learned from her grandmother starting when she was 5 years old. I had a crazy idea. Let's sell it. We started advertising on Nextdoor. Put together a menu with one entree for every day of the week with sides and starters. We started working at 10 AM. I was the sous chef and customer relations while she studied. So I would be chopping onions and garlic, searing eggplant, marinating lamb and talking and texting with customers. I had all of the takeout containers prepped for every customer by 4 and then she would do her magic. Pickup was at 6 outside of our apartment and then I did deliveries afterwards. We became so popular that we were pushing out 20-40 meals per day. It kept us afloat financially. So for me, the best part of the pandemic, we worked together like a well-oiled machine. Had fun, solved problems, and were a comfort during the very scary times. Open bracket. And jumped in bed whenever we had a free moment. We got married a year later, and I have no idea if we would have without the pandemic. Cute story. Did you take your pop-up to the next level like your relationship? The mere fact that you're calling it that tells me you're not ready. Type A middle managers admitting that all meetings could be emails. I've noticed the opposite management seems to think another Zoom meeting is no big deal. That's a little different than everyone going to a cramped conference room and listening to something no one cares about. Prior to the pandemic, I traveled every week for work. For 6 years, I only saw my wife and kids on the weekends, and even then, I didn't get to see my wife much since she worked most weekends. Since the pandemic, I haven't had to travel at all, and have a new, much better relationship with my wife and kids. Opposite for me, spending 24 hours a day with my wife and the kids put a huge strain on our relationship, along with both of us drinking more than we should have. Only after the kids were in bed. On one hand it led to a terrible divorce, and on the other hand, we are both much happier now. You either realize you don't spend enough time together or realize you are using work to avoid the realization that you're incompatible. Either way it's for the best. I thrived in the isolation. Everyone I knew was losing their minds and here I was chilling and living my best life. Also worked from home. I even enjoyed going out shopping for groceries, because it was always dead. I did my part and wore a mask. I kinda miss it. I always wondered, will I be bored or depressed when I eventually retire? Or is retirement going to be awesome? Based on my COVID experience, retirement is going to be awesome. I love being at home, and I love my own company. Set me up with a cup of coffee, a podcast, and a jigsaw puzzle, and I'm happy as a clam. You're not alone. People suddenly stopped expecting me to go be social. I got to spend months on end without having to decline a single invitation. It was so nice. Oh hell yes. There was a satire article on the Beaverton, Canada's The Onion, about how lockdown was as close to retirement as millennials are going to get. Too real. I'm guessing you weren't invited to the many Zoom party quiz catch-up sessions. For a time, I started to realize I was just drunk alone in my flat after those hour-plus long calls. I started working from home, which saved me 3 hours of commuting time and gave me an additional 8 hours awake time day with my 1-year-old who is now 3. 5. Not many fathers get that much time with their kid and I still work from home. I've always tried to get people to take workplace office hygiene more seriously. Too often have I seen people come into work sounding hoarse, sneeze into their hand, then go use the office coffee maker. For about a year and a half, people actually did start taking this sort of thing seriously. Proper hand washing, using sanitizer, being a bit more mindful of spreading germs, not coming in when sick. Unfortunately, people don't seem to have learned much, and things are quickly reverting to the old ways. The first week of COVID, before everyone got sent home to work, our office building ran out of hot water by 9:30 AM because people actually started washing their hands. I was disgusted because it meant people just didn't do it before. I transitioned during COVID and started using men's rooms for the first time. I'd heard jokes about men not washing their hands, but surely, I thought, that was before the pandemic. At least now people will wash their hands after using the bathroom. Nope. Dudes just walk out the door after taking a dump. It is horrifying. Men's rooms are the worst. Due to the stimulus checks, I was able to leave a toxic and abusive job without a job lined up ahead of time. They were my salvation too. First one erased my credit card debt. Second one became my security deposit for my first real apartment. Third one was my start to investing. It's almost like redistribution of wealth was good for your economic well-being. Who would have thought? I lost 25 pounds when they closed all of the restaurants and bars. I learned that I don't have to go to restaurants and bars all the time. No exaggeration, I saved $1,000 a month by not going to the bars. Me too. Ended the first year with $10,000 in my savings account. Oh my god, the silence. I miss the silence. The constant car humming is back. Open bracket. Well, a while ago, but still. I am with you on that. The lack of air and land traffic was pretty nice. I live on a busy street near a traffic light, and it was so refreshing to sit in the living room with the windows open, barely hearing loud trucks and motorcycles, Dumbus modified cars, sirens, and people sitting at the light blasting their shitty music. I'm a pediatric anesthesiologist. I often put kids under anesthesia via a face mask. COVID has made kids much more comfortable going off to sleep via a mask. Hooray for small victories. I had a hernia when I was 5, early 80s, needed surgery. My parents did a great job of preparing me, managing expectations, etc. I was so excited to get the mask, not afraid. Thanks mom. I was a competitive little man. I thought that I could beat the gas. Bring it. You can't knock me out. I just saw Rocky 3. My nurse told my mom that when I woke up I resumed my countdown from 8. There wasn't a rematch. Driving down my 4 million plus population main freeway, not a car in sight, going 40 miles per hour, only to have a cop roll up next to me, look into my car and give me a nod and drive away. Main freeway, not a car in sight, going 40, but why? Perhaps he was just cruising on an empty freeway for fun. I knew a lot of people who would go for a random drive just so they could get out of the house. Though 40 miles per hour is rather slow for a freeway, if there's no one at all, then I suppose he can go at whatever speed he likes. My last semester at uni, instead of waking up at 6:30 and dragging my ass to several classes that taught me nothing of value, I could just read the weekly notes and finish assignments on my own time. I flunked my final semester when it switched to online midway through it. I also don't like work from home. Finding out that masks are great and light alternatives to carrying scarves to prevent the icy cold downtown wind from freezing my face. Oh yes, masks in the summer are terrible. Masks in the cold weather slaps. Work from home office. This and the resulting push for at least partial hybrid schedules. I now get to WFH 2 days a week, which is excellent. My company has now allowed us to choose in office, hybrid, or work from home full time. Guess who has a home office now? This girl. No contact delivery. I love that this option has now become so widely available because of the pandemic, and I hope that it stays that way. Pre-pandemic, my delivery options were pizza and terrible Chinese food. Now I can get virtually every restaurant in town delivered. First few weeks, when everyone was actually following the rules and enjoying their time inside, it really was a unique experience. It was so surreal going to the grocery store and seeing so many empty shelves for items and food I never would have seen a shortage of. It was wholesome embracing Zoom to catch up with friends and family, and all the celebrities getting together to do commentaries on beloved movies. Tiger King, the start of the pandemic, and the Pokemon Go launch may be the closest moments we've been to world peace, lol. OMG, the Tiger King thing. I had forgotten, and I still haven't watched it out of spite. A couple of things. Some people realized that frontline workers are the backbone of our civil society and finally respected them. The anger level in some people seemed to drop, especially in those who realize that life isn't about them. Organizations realizing that work from home produces happier employees in most cases. Unfortunately, these things have mostly gone back to pre-pandemic ways. Some are worse than pre-pandemic. Switching off. There was something liberating about not having responsibilities of a job. Was furloughed in UK. No people to see. No obligations to meet others' expectations. It's the period of time I've slept best in my adult life. My body would easily switch into rest mode. Catching up on sleep. Hiking during the week when less people were able to. Also, spending so much time with my dog. Masks actually. I could sing or mumble things while I'm out and no one noticed. I still haven't dropped the habit of talking to myself at the grocery store that I picked up. People probably think I'm nuts. My partner and I going for hour-long walks every day and cooking fresh every day because I had the time. Getting an ugly ass lower facial procedure done and no one seeing from the masks. The hormonals, it's for me. No one knows. I was out cycling around the whole residential area on the first day of the pandemic. At that time I had no idea the pandemic started. I cycled for about an hour and that is the most peaceful time I had in my life. There's only bird chirping. The air breezed through my cheeks. There was no car I needed to watch out for. No unsupervised children playing on the roads and no people to stare at me while I was cycling through. But it backfired when I returned home and got yelled at by my mom. But it is as if I was living in a peaceful life I never thought I would dream of. There was a 3-month period right at the beginning where there was no one on the roads. Gas was cheap and things were quiet and peaceful. Let me tell you, as someone who enjoys a spirited ride on a motorcycle, that is pure bliss. I got to spend it with someone I love. I fell in love with my girlfriend and made her my wife. My baby used to spend 50+ hours in daycare and got sick all the time. And then she got to stay home instead, which was a life-changing difference. Then I got to spend my second pregnancy teleworking instead of going to the office every day, which was the second perk. I learned to make foods besides beef stroganoff. Why would you need to? Beef stroganoff is amazing. I had already quit drinking in October of 2019, but having to stay home and leave the restaurant I was working at really helped solidify that. 3 years sober this coming Saturday. Besides the gas prices dropping down under $2 gal, the fact that people had to respect the 6 feet of space in lines. There's nothing that annoys me more in a store than when people pull their cart up 2 inches from my back in the checkout line. Finding a remote job. Great time to be pizza delivery guy. Empty roads on my way to work as an essential worker. Learning people's true colors. It's funny how many people reach out to you and you realize majority of those friends weren't your real friends. Quit drinking because my functioning alcoholism got stir crazy and I nearly died. Tough road, but I'm much better off. 2. 5 years sober next month. The lack of peopling. So much alone time. I worked from home in a peaceful environment. Also got plenty of sleep as I no longer had to waste 2-3 hours every day in transportation to workplace. Not being asked out by friends and family, and having to come up with excuses not to go. Spending so much time focusing on me and my health instead of having my social anxiety affect my every waking moment. That when I did go out to the stores, people stayed the duck out of my bubble. In some ways, I'm pissed we are back to normal. No traffic to and from work. I took care of patients in the emergency room in an NYC hospital and it was gratifying. Favorite part was teaching new nurses, who were a little like deer in headlights, some new skills that they might never have a chance to see again. When NYC made public service announcements asking people to stop smoking weed before going to the hospitals because it was messing with their ability to diagnose and treat them. So I'd never expected to hear prior, but sums up the craziness and anxiety of those first weeks. It was weirdly reassuring to hear maybe, like, yep, it's not just me. Everyone is treating water. Maybe not best part and just personally memorable. IDK. I used to catch a cold at least once a year. Haven't had one since the beginning of COVID. People weren't crawling up my ass while waiting in lines. Less traffic. No questions about not wanting to go out to do social shit. Stopped using foundation powder entirely and got to keep my dumb face covered everywhere I went. No one ever told me to smile. Hard to choose. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.